Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's our pleasure to welcome you to the 2025 International Report presentation by Laurent Vanat. My name is Jérôme Riff. I'm the director of Mountain Planet. Mountain Planet, as you know, will be held next April 21st to 23rd 2026, and it will bring together all the players in the mountain industries, suppliers, manufacturers, service providers, local authorities, and startups. It's the not to be missed international event for discovering the latest trends, exchanging ideas, and building the future of the sector. In 2026, Mountain Planet will take over a second exhibition hall to welcome even more suppliers and exhibitors and for more innovation. Mountain Planet also decided to renew its partnership and collaboration with Laurent Vanat. Laurent Vanat, who invented the report on the snow and mountain tourism. This report is an incredible source of information which allow us to take the pulse of the mountain all over the world, and we want also to reaffirm our support for all mountain, winter and summer alike. But now it's time for Laurent to present the 17th edition of the International Report of Snow and Mountain Tourism. Have a good conference.
Yeah, good afternoon. Sorry for the problem with the connection. I'm very pleased to present you today the 17th issue of my international report about snow and mountain tourism. As I mentioned, it's the 17th issue, so there is plenty of data now over the years that allow to understand better the evolution of the ski business over the world. So my presentation will be about the 2023-24 season. And of course, the 24-25 is not yet finished everywhere, and it has even not begun in the Southern Hemisphere. The 23-24 season is qualified as a business usual season. I would say this for the second time, because last year I already qualified the former season, business as usual. We are perfectly in the score of the last 20 years average. And the basic drivers of attendance were weather and snow condition everywhere in the world, or nearly at least. So I will quickly come on the data from the report, and then I will also share some thoughts about market and geopolitical issues, what I call the digitalization joke, and industry consolidation. So first of all, the number of ski resorts around the world is changing every year. There are still today some new resorts that appear here and there every season. Of course, the major country with the new resort was China, but I'm very used to mention this, so to be a little bit more out of the tradition, I just choose 3 other new resorts in various countries in the world that I feel give some idea what's happening in this country. First, in Armenia, the resort of Miller. In Armenia, there has been a project for new ski resorts for years and years and years, but nothing happened. And then suddenly in Miller, they built a brand new resort with 3 major lifts, state of the art, and they will grow further. So this is something that's noticeable. Another small resort in Czech Republic is Orlický Sourik. I just mentioned this resort because Czech Republic is a rather major market, but even on a major market, you can have a new ski resort. It's not a big one. There is only one chairlift and one ski lift, but it's anyway a new ski resort. And in Russia, I mentioned the Manzerok resort, but there have been some others. Manzerok is supposed to become also a state-of-the-art resort with luxury hotel. There are already a gondola and chairlift, and it will be developing further. And this illustrates I think the trend in Russia. There is some government encouragement to develop the ski resort. It's a little bit like it was in China around the Olympics. Some government support to building new ski resorts. So the total number of ski areas in the world is 5,898. Of course, in this, there are ski areas of all categories. Some have just one magic carpet. But among these nearly 6,000 ski areas, there are only 730 that make more than 100,000 skier visits in a season. And this is the heavy weight of the industry, because this 730 ski resort makes 73% of the total visitation in the world. In the pie chart you see on the right, this is the distribution of the ski areas by size. And of course, the small areas are the much numerous than the medium resorts, and large resorts and major resorts make only 13% of all the ski resorts in the world, but they make 73% of the visitation. When I mean large resorts, so it's the resorts over 100,000 skier visits in a season. Major resorts are those only 50 that make more than 1 million skier visits in a season. And so on the right-hand side, you see the distribution of the skier visits per ski area size. And as I mentioned, the major resorts and large resorts make 73% of the visitation. This just to know, but in the new issue of the report, for every country there is the distribution of the ski resort between small, medium, large and major resorts. This is the figure that is expected every year that I present the report. 366 million skier visits in the 2023-24 season. It is a little bit less than former season, but not so much. And according to the chart, you see that it's very easy to see that we are in the average of the last season, starting from the beginning of the century. And if we make a closer comparison, I took all the season pre-COVID and I compared them with all the 3 seasons post-COVID, calculating the average. And the post-COVID average is even higher, slightly higher than the pre-COVID average. So we can really not state any downwards trend after COVID-19 on a global perspective worldwide. Of course, there are some country that got a good season and some country that get a less good season. It's business as usual. Sometimes you've got good weather and good snow, and sometimes it's not so good. So in the season 23-24 was down to the former season in the country that are in blue on this map in the US. But in the US, the former season was the best ever, so it's sometimes difficult to beat your own records. In Eastern Europe and Russia, they had some mild condition and lack of snow for the season. So here the season was shortened and of course with less visitation. Same problem in Australia. Then in yellow, you have got the countries that made a very good season. And the first one is Italy, that bet the last year record that was already the best ever. We have South America, Chile and Argentina, where they had a very good season with early snowfalls. And I think China is maybe the only country on this map that was not really influenced by snow and weather condition. But in China, they had the impact of having the first season after the Olympics and after COVID without any COVID restriction. I will come back on this just afterwards. This is the ranking of season's top country for 2023-24, with United States with more than 60 million skier visits on the first place, as usually over the recent years, followed up by France and Austria, close, with around 50 million skier visits. These two countries have not yet recovered fully to the pre-COVID level, but I think it's on the way, especially in France with the season that is ending now. Italy was good. It's the only country that is around 30 million skier visits. Then there was Japan. Japan is still declining. It's difficult to know when this decline will really stop. And just next there are Switzerland and China. China is very close after Switzerland. It may take the place of Switzerland in the next season, I don't know. And they are followed by Canada and Sweden and Russia with about 10 million skier visits in a season. Of course, there are seasons that were winner and seasons that were loser if I compare with the 5-year average. So as we have this problem of the COVID years with some closure in some country, I'm obliged to have a good comparison basis to take the pre-COVID 5-year average. And I compare the 23-24 season. And of course, the winner are China, because they are some level over the pre-COVID seasons. United States, because they had right after COVID very, very good season. Italy, as I mentioned, they have 2 best ever season in a row. Russia is growing, and Scandinavia is also growing. Switzerland is also taking back some skier visits that they lose in the 4 or 5 years pre-COVID. And the country that lose visitation on this chart is Japan. As I mentioned, there is a continuous decline that we don't really know if it stopped or not. Germany had very bad season with warm weather and lack of snow the 2 or 3 last season, so they are getting backwards as far as visitation is concerned. Czech Republic had the kind of same problem, and Austria and France have not yet recovered the pre-COVID average level. I will come on more detail about these 2 countries later on. I mentioned China was the country for the first time out of the problem of the COVID. Since 1920, they had the COVID restriction, and even in 22-23, they released the COVID restriction, but everybody was sick because of the COVID spreading, and the ski resorts were operating in December and January, but they were empty because the people were either afraid to come or sick at home. So 23-24 is the first season again after the big boom we had till 2018-19. And the big question is, will the growing trend that we had before COVID come back or not? I will be able to tell you in the next year or in 2 years in the presentation of my report. Today it's difficult to know exactly what will be the pace of the growth in China over the next seasons. In fact, we are back to the basic. And I think despite climate change, we have this management theory from Herzberg that's called motivator hygiene that prevails also in ski business. In fact, this theory says that we have some dissatisfaction drivers that are those drivers that are called hygiene drivers. And in the ski industry, it's the snow. If there is no snow, there is dissatisfaction. Then if there is snow, people do not really care if there is much or not so much. If there is snow, it's okay. They are happy with this. But they are not really motivated to go to the ski. We need to have the sun. And if there is the sun and nice and warm days, so they will go to the slopes. And in fact, over the last 2 seasons, we had rather this phenomenon that happened. We had rather low snow, but rather good weather. And especially in the 22-23 season, we had a very sunny weekend and holiday periods. And some ski resorts, even if they were really major market and traditional resort, they made record visitation figures. So that's really mean that snow is good to have, but if you have snow, you don't really need to have very much. And climate change is maybe bringing less snow, but it is bringing a little bit more snowy days. So it's the reverse effect in this way. And I wanted to check further the impact of climate change on the attendance at ski resort, because of course we hear a lot about the impact of climate change as far as temperatures are concerned. And in the mountains, it's a big concern, especially in summertime with the glacier melting down and so on. But my question was to concentrate on attendance figures on the 4 basic alpine countries. And in fact, on Austria and France, it's difficult to make any conclusion in this. In Italy, it's impossible to say that the climate change is reducing attendance because they are growing. It is only in Switzerland where we have the issue. I come back on the detail. In Austria and France, as I mentioned, we are still not yet at the pre-COVID level. The recovery is slow. In Austria, they are still lacking some foreign customers. So there are some explanation to these low figures. And you see that before COVID, the blue line, that is the 5-year average in Austria, was very, very steady. In France, it was also rather steady with a little decline before the COVID period, but not significant enough to take a big conclusion on this. And after the first year, right after COVID, was rather a good year, and then followed by 2 years that were at lower level. But we know that this lower level of visitation was partly or mostly due to some non-alpine region in France that had difficult weather and snow condition, and it has been always so over the years that sometimes in the Pyrenees and Massif Central and Vosges, the conditions are not so good, and these regions are more sensitive to this changing weather condition. So it's difficult for these 2 countries to take any conclusion about really an impact on the attendance. For Italy, I mentioned that the 2 last season was the best ever on record. So no way to say there is a decline in attendance. In Switzerland, that's the case study, I would say, in the Alps, where it's clear we had a decline in attendance over the last 15 years. There has been some recovery in the pre-COVID years, And right after COVID, we had again a season that was rather good, and then 2 seasons not so good because of snow and weather conditions. I made a more in-depth study over these 15 years and the reduction of skier visits in Switzerland, and the total decrease in skier visits in Switzerland can be distributed as you see on this following chart. In fact, there are 5% of the decrease that is connected with ski resorts that get out of the business. Only 5%, because mainly this ski area were rather ski lifts that got out of the business, and they do not represent a lot of in terms of attendance. We have 39% of the decrease that is due to reduced length of the season. And this is clearly attributable to the climate change, because of course the seasons are getting shorter because of the climate change, and we know this. But 54% of the decline is a decline in daily visitation that has no direct connection with climate change. It is connected with the change in consumption pattern of leisure activities, in the competition to the ski, in the purchase power of the middle class, or the reduction of the middle class. It can be also attributed partly to the exchange rate of the Swiss francs that made Switzerland less attractive for the foreign skiers. But that means that 54% of the decrease is not attributable to the climate change in this case study of Switzerland. Ski remains a domestic business. I have already been mentioning this several times in a former presentation. You have here the share of foreign skiers in a sample of major markets. You see that Andorra is an exception with more than about 90% of the skiers that are foreigners, but it's not surprising. Andorra has less than 100,000 inhabitants, so the skiers are coming from abroad, neighboring Spain and France, and further abroad also. Austria is the only large market that has still more than half of the skiers coming from abroad. But then that's it. Norway, Switzerland, Italy, we are under 50% of foreign skiers. And in Switzerland, it has been also partly decreasing because of this issue of the exchange rate of the Swiss francs. And you see at the top of the chart, the United States have a very small share in international skiers coming to the States to ski, and these are mostly Canadians. And reverse, United States is not also a big outbound market, but we have noticed over very recent season an increase of US skiers in various alpine destinations. The chart is made for Switzerland in the Swiss Alpine region during the winter, and you can see that winter 23 and winter 24 had still unrecorded level of overnight stay from the US. But of course, you have to look at the scale, because it's 300,000, 250,000. It's about 1% of Swiss visitation. So, if you take the weight of these visitors, it's still a niche market. But it was clear that there was an increase of US visitors in Swiss resorts. This has also been stated in some French resorts and also in Japan. The question is, what's the reason for this? Because transatlantic skiing has been existing for 60 years and has never been something very important. I think one of the reasons is the mega pass affiliation of some resort in France, Switzerland, around the world, and also in Japan, that encouraged the US holder of this pass to travel abroad to go in this resort. But the thing is that in Switzerland, we also noticed the growth in US visitors in resorts that are not affiliated to Megapass. So that means there must be another explanation at least. And for me, one of this explanation that I can find is that we have this dissatisfaction of part of the clients in the large US resorts. You have all seen this video on the social media of the long queue at left in some of the major US resorts. And of course, the people from the East Coast need to take a plane for 4 hours to go to the Colorado and then drive on the road that is often with traffic jam on the weekend to the resort. It's not much complicated to come to Europe with a 7 hours flight and then to go in the resorts. And regarding the price, it may even be cheaper. So I think there is some motivation for the US skiers to go abroad now. But of course, this remains in rather small quantities. If I speak about the US, it's also introduced the issue of geopolitical. And I think with Mr. Trump, there may be further geopolitical issues. I already mentioned in the past that in China, this is not really geopolitical, but they started to build their own lifts. And in 22, 23, all the new lifts in the ski resorts, the detachable lifts, were made in China. It is typical of China to import and then manufacture by themselves. But now, I think because of geopolitical issues, Russia is going also to start manufacturing detachable lift, and this clearly because the Western sanction. And there's a pity for the Western manufacturer. And there is also an issue about the cost of the lifts in the US now with the tariff from Mr. Trump, because suddenly in the ski resort, they noticed that most of their equipment is coming from Europe, even most of the ski gear and so on. And so depending on this, on how this story about tariff is going, ski may cost more in the US. And I think even in Europe, the geopolitical issues have had an impact on the price of skiing, because the average price increase over the last 2 years was between 13 and 19%, which is higher than usual. And this was driven by the rise of energy cost. And again, this is a geopolitical issue because the energy got up because of the sanction policy of Europe. Another issue that may be not so pregnant, but for me that's already existing, is the decreasing Western middle class. The purchasing power of the Western middle class is decreasing, and even the middle class itself is not more numerous. It tends to get reduced. And the political action, when you start war and so, does not concentrate on the welfare of the Western population. So I think that in the future, the trend will not improve. In fact, it may get worse. And so we will have always more people claiming that the lift tickets are too expensive. This is not the case for the Alpine countries listed on this chart, but for the US, I think there is also the reason for the price increase in the US is much less the issue of energy, but it's just making more money from the business. And I think in the US, there is a risk of milking the cow till it dies, with strategy of increasing the daily pass price, the window price to $300 and so on. Of course, it may push the the use of the season pass. If people pay $300 for one ski day, you make good money, but you may also have people that will not pay and get away of the market. So I think I wonder how the future will be in the United States if they can go for a long time further with this kind of price increase. We have been speaking over the last 20 years about the digitalization, the online marketplace, and so on. And I've been checking this time to time on the ski resort. I just wanted to have an idea of the situation now. And so I took this 50 largest resort in the world that make 1 million skier visits. Some years there are in fact 48, some years there are 52, but I call them the top 50. And I had a look on the merchant offer of their website. If it was possible to book for ski pass, accommodation, the transfer, ski rentals, ski lessons, and some side activities. And in fact, even for the ski pass, in less than 80% of the ski resorts, it's possible to buy them. But there are more than 20% of the resorts that do not offer this feature. Accommodation is less, and the other are much less. In fact, there are only 18% of this top 50 resort that offer a one-stop shopping. It is very surprising because 20 years ago, you had already, in some of these top 50 resorts, you could already purchase the whole list that is on my chart. And nowadays, there has not been so many progress. And even I tested one resort that 20 years ago, you could purchase all the lists here. Today, there is one item you can no longer purchase on their website. So despite we have been hearing a lot about the digitalization in all the conference and trade show and so on, there are still much room for improvement. And of course, this is part of the customer journey. And we always say that the customer journey in ski resort is difficult. But obviously, ski resorts are not always doing their best to improve this, or at least there is still a lot of room for improvement. I mentioned the destination website, and of course, a problem I had in looking at this website is that usually when you go to a destination website and you want to buy something, you cannot buy something, you must watch a video. And then when the video is over, it's sometimes even difficult to find out where you can click to purchase something. But it asks some question, what is the goal of this website? Just show a video or make some business. Regarding the tour operators market, there's not been much change. The tour operator market, even if now you can buy online, but it's usually a standardized package. And the few improvements there has been is the private transfer. It's more often now than in the past. You are no longer obliged to take the bus to go to the ski resort. And some flexibility on the stay has been introduced, but still the major part of the stays are 7 days from Saturday to Saturday. So there's still a lack of flexibility. In fact, the holy grail of the online purchase for ski package is this travel API, where you can cherry pick your package and take only what you want, as you want, organize as the stay as long as you want, rental as long as you want, ski pass as long as you want. But there is a limited number of players, and they offer only a selection of destination. But this is the real online shopping, but still not very widely spread. A last point in my presentation is the industry consolidation, especially in Europe, because of the the introduction of Veil in Switzerland, purchasing Andermatt, and then Crans-Montana. There have been a newspaper saying the US monster will eat all the ski resorts in the Alps and such kind of fears. But in fact, it was only fears. If you look at my chart, the white bars on the first line of charts are done for Compagnie des Alpes in France and Veil Resorts. These are the two largest operators in the world. You see that the expansion is rather slow on general. CDA is even losing some resorts, but they didn't get new resorts. Veil has expanded in 1920 because they purchased another group and integrated it. But in fact, the market share did not grow so much. If you look at the blue chart below, you see that for CDA, the ups and downs are not much connected with the number of resorts, but rather the good or bad season in the resort operated by the CDA. And the Veil, you see that when they got a lot of new resorts in 2019-20, it didn't increase so much the market share on the US market of skier visits. And even on the last season, the market share has been decreasing without decreasing the number of ski resorts. So I think there are some limits that has been reached for single players. Some new players are emerging, but very, very slowly on the market. So this was a presentation of some highlights of the report. Of course, the reports contain much more information. It has been disseminated to the contributors of the report that supported the crowdfunding. And for the others, you have the chance to purchase hard copies of the report that you can order in scanning this QR code. So I thank you for your kind attention, and I give the screen to Jérôme for moderating the question.
Thank you, Laurent. As far as I can see, we don't have questions for the moment. So maybe in order to warm our people, I will start with a first question. According to the fact you have the snow and you have the sun, in your opinion, what are the good ingredients to be a successful ski resort in 2025?
What is the... I think you gave yourself the answer. For me, it's snow. You don't need to have so much, but you need to have so that the people are not dissatisfied. And then when you have sun shining, you have lots of people in the ski resorts. And this has been stated again in the 24-25 season with the record attendance, even record daily attendance in some resorts because there were nice conditions. And despite there was not so much snow.
Okay. Today we saw that in 23-24, the total number of ski days was approximately 366 million, with some country up and some country down. If this number of ski days is stable, do you think that the number of skiers is increasing, is stable, or is decreasing all over the world?
Yeah, it's a little bit a complicated question to answer because there are various drivers. Globally, I mentioned in the presentation of the last report that the number of skiers worldwide is growing. It's in a growing trend. There are now about 150 million skiers worldwide. Problem is that the skiers are not skiing every season. We consider that only half of the skiers are skiing in a given season. So these 150 million people were not all on the slopes last season. And in some countries, the number is increasing, of course, so that the global number is increasing. And I think this is the case of China. But in China, the number of skiers is increasing, but not really the number of skiers days that they will practice. Because part of the skiers in China, they only come for 1 day, maybe 2 days, and that's it. And maybe they will even not come next year and the year after. So we grow here the number of skiers rather strongly, but not so strongly the number of skier visits. In Europe, it's a little bit different because the number of skiers is rather stable. I would say it has a trend to decline, but it depends on the country, but let's take it, it's stable. But part of the skiers are skiing less often, and part of the skiers are skiing more often. So there's some kind of compensation. But I think on the long range, Europe and the other major markets have this problem of renewal of the customers, and that's not solved yet.
This was linked to my third question, which is, can we say that we have a global uniform profile of skier all over the world, or you can see particularities between the countries, not to mention China, Japan, Europe with Austria, Switzerland, or France, and United States, of course. So I guess different area, different profile of skiers.
The major difference is between the major market and China, I would say, because in the major market we have historically the weight of the baby boomer that are still part of the skiers, but this share is of course declining every year, and it is renewed by the all other generation, but there is not one of this generation that is really getting in the ski much more than the other ones. In China, they stepped in the ski suddenly in the early 2000s. So in Europe, we know that people after 20 years, they will not learn how to ski. But in China, because they stepped in from nothing, you have people till 40 years that learn to ski. So the entrance to the market is wider in China because people, even after 20, they try skiing. But of course, in China, there is the drawback, what I mentioned just before, that a lot of skiers, they just try and do not come back. Because still, I think part of the client, they take ski as really a leisure. They go skiing as they would do a bowling and so on. Okay, it's nice because you can make some picture at the top of the lift and send to your friends on the WeChat and so. But they don't adhere to skiing as a sport or as a healthy activity where you will dedicate time and money.
Thank you, Laurent. I don't see any further questions. I don't know if our audience would like to come with questions. Otherwise, we will finish this presentation. I would like to thank you, all of you, for attending this presentation. Thank you, Laurent. And two important things. Number one, don't forget to scan the code to order the reports, and save the date for Mountain Planet in 2026 from the 21st to the 23rd of April. We look forward to welcoming you. Have a great night now, and thank you for your attendance.